This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. I have 2 new patterns for sale at www.dianaknits.com. They're also on my Etsy page. Now these patterns are for a Ripley Afghan, a zigzaggy thing, and it is made with bias panels. This is one that I've folded in half and laid out on my knitting machine. And there's a second one that I want to show you as well. This one is really large. The first one was done with ice cream roving. The second one was done with some Karen latte cakes. I'm lifting up a point of the Afghan so you can get a closer look at it. What this features is a side edge that requires no edging. Since it's on the bias, it doesn't need edging. The top and bottom edges are edged with I-cord, but I have also shown in the pattern how to go around the outside corner and how to edge the inside corner, this one. I use a sew-as-you-go technique to put some of the panels together and a special seaming technique to sew the 2 halves of the Afghan together. This is very versatile, requires only the main bed, and could easily be done on any bulky or mid-gauge. You could do it on a standard gauge using a thinner yarn, but it would take longer. Now this is the first in my Afghan in a Day or even less series, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with these Afghans because I made sure that they were not only fast, but beautiful and practical. And I didn't take shortcuts like have edges that roll up or just make them plain. They're all interesting and fun to knit. So let's get started with the business of showing you how to make a bias strip. I begin the strip at the far left edge of the flatbed knitting machine. I have a ribber on this machine, but I am not using it right now. I am just using the main bed, so this is a really simple pattern. I'll put on about this much waist knitting, 1 row of ravel cord, and then I'll show you how to knit the bias strip. You'll notice that I started on the far left end of the bed, and that's because I am trying to create a strip that slants this way. It's going to slant to the right, and I am going to work my way across the bed, and my strip is going to look like this. It's going to have the slant going in this way, so it's going to look like that. If I started at the far right end of the bed, the slant would go the other way. So here I am on the far left end, and I'm just on a medium tension. This is just a sample. Much more detailed instructions in the pattern, of course. I start by knitting 2 rows. I put my row counter on 0 because I would definitely want to keep track of how long my strip is. Now, every 2 rows, I'm going to do something very simple and very specific. I'm going to decrease on the left and increase on the right, which makes it all slant that way. So this is pretty easy. To increase on the right, I just bring out an additional empty needle. That's all. This is a simple increase. You could do a fancier increase, but I'm not bothering. On the left, I'm using a 2-stitch transfer tool, and I'm just taking the last 2 stitches, moving them 1 needle rightward onto these 2, so there's 1 stitch on the end, 2 stitches on that needle, and push the empty needle out of work. Knit 2 rows, increase on the right by adding a needle, decrease on the left by using the tool, and knit 2 rows. And you just repeat that. This is so easy. you could relax and listen to an audiobook, I think, once you had a little bit of routine going. Now, the simple increase on the right makes a little bit of a hole, but that works fine for what I'm doing. You use whatever increase suits your purpose. By the way, I've got a really fun project video from years ago called the Bias Stripe Gift Bag that was made this way. Now, you can see that in a very short time, I have worked my way rightward by a few stitches, I don't know, 7 or 8, but I'm just going to be steadily working rightward. So after I get to the end of the needle bed, I would run out of room to keep working rightward and keep making my strip longer. The solution to that is to move the stitches. You can either move the stitches by taking them off on scrap yarn, moving it over to the left end of the bed, and picking the stitches on one by one, or you can do a little garter bar move. I'm going to demonstrate the garter bar move as the last part of this video. Now, here I am at the end of the bed, and I can't increase anymore, but my strip isn't long enough, let's say. So I'm just going to demonstrate how to move it. I unthread and get this yarn so that it isn't caught in the carriage. And I am going to use my garter bar brass stopper. I'll use the smooth edge to pull all the needles out. Now this is with weight on this. I'm using a weighted comb on it right now. So I do that, and that pulls all the needles out, and you notice that the knitting came out with them. Now I'm going to push the knitting back against the stopper. If my latches aren't open, an easy way to open them all is to use a credit card cut on a slant. And I'm going to use the garter bar just as a stitch holder, which is the easiest way I know of to use a garter bar. So I'm just going to hang one of the holes of the garter bar over each of the needles. And here's a little trick to make it super simple to pull the stitches on and not have them get fouled in a latch. Just close those latches quickly with the card, or even your finger, whatever. But I do love my card. Okay, now the stitches are on the garter bar and they come right off the needles. My next problem is I need some needles to hang them on the far left end of the bed. So let's do that. I'm focused in on the far left end of the bed now, and I'll pick that stopper up and I'll just use it to bring some needles out. More than I need is fine. It makes a great needle pusher. And I can even drop it down in front of the gate pegs if none of those needles will move. Now I like to open the latches before I try to hang any stitches on them. This is just one section of garter bar, so that makes it easy. Now I have the wrong side, the purl side, of the bias strip facing me, and I find the leftmost loop. I like to match that up to the leftmost needle, just like that, and then I can just push those on, lift this up a little, all aboard, and everything is on. So now I've repositioned the stitches. I have a couple of little things to do before I can knit again. I need to use some sort of needle pusher. In my case, Miss Lazy, I'll use the stopper. I need to push those back. I need to push these stitches back. I'm pushing the needle butts, and boom, the stitches go right back. I also had a few needles at the far end that were still sticking out, so I pushed them back too. Now I can just keep on doing my bias strip. I can rethread the carriage, and I can keep on increasing on the right and decreasing on the left until it's as long as I want it to be.